Scupper inside ESPN.com here on the latest edition of Hockey Today, the podcast. We chat with Leo Komarov, All-Star and Toronto Maple Leaf, and all things post-All-Star break. You can find it at the new ESPN app under the Listen tab.
The topics are hot. The discussion is heated. And we're on fire. The First Take podcast starts now.
And now, give it up for our championship team, Molly Karam, Stephen A. Smith, and Skip Bayless. First Take is on the road for Super Bowl 50 in San Francisco, and it starts now.
Let's get it crackin'. Let's start the session. Mars Lynch, the competition, balls, start that action. You can never debate it. This is actual fact. Stephen A. with the flavor, baby. Let's skip through a track. I'm like, say what? Say what? What's up with all my haters? I'm a ball when I perform. So my jersey's in the air. I'm allergic to my haters. Every morning I prepare. 4 takes, that's you. 3 takes, not me. 2 takes if you lucky. First take, stop me. 4 takes, that's you. 3 takes, not me. 2 takes if you lucky. First take, they got me.
Super Bowl 50. We have the most fantastic crowd here. Thank you guys so much for being here with us. We're at Fort Mason Center, beautiful Golden Gate Bridge behind us, and we are so excited to be here. Gentlemen, Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith, good morning. How are we doing? Good. So good to see you.
I got to drive home what you just said.
Please do.
I need to make a point to our viewing audience just how great these Bay Area First Take fans are for coming out here so early. Thank you. Thank you. And I got to tell you, this isn't the easiest place to get to.
No
so thank you for getting here.
Yes.
Thank you.
So true.
Ditto.
Ditto.
Yes, thank you guys again. You guys are the best. And also joining us today, Matt Ryan, his team, the only team to beat, of course, the Carolina Panthers, the Atlanta Falcons. So Matt Ryan will be here with us. Oh, whatever. Be nice. It's too early for this, Skip. And friend of the show, Brandon Marshall, will also be into the house. We heard some new news, some Jets rumors. We'll get to that as well. But
do we
gentlemen,
get to talk about Jay Cutler when he gets here? Maybe?
No. They weren't roommates.
I think you know I'll figure a way to bring up Jay Cutler.
Stephen A. does love him some Cuddy. All right. We ready to work, guys? All right. Let's do it. We kick things off with Cam Newton, who was repeatedly asked about race during player availability yesterday. Take a listen.
I don't even want to touch on the topic of black quarterback because I think this game is bigger than black, white, or even green. So I think we limit ourselves when we just label ourselves just black, this, that, and the third. I wanted to bring awareness because of that. But, yeah, I don't think I should be labeled just a black quarterback because it's bigger things in this sport that needs to be accomplished.
Why don't you want to elaborate on it? It's a big issue. Don't you believe?
No, it's not.
The stereotype that a mobile black quarterback cannot throw in the pocket effectively. You don't think that exists?
I think we shattered that a long time ago.
You really believe that? It's fine. Why don't you back it up and say something?
Why should I back it up?
Because you brought up the topic and it's still an issue in the minds of
It's not an issue. It's an issue for you.
Okay, it's not just for me. I'm not making choices.
I've said numerous times that, I pray to have a stage that people will listen. And I pray to God that, I do right by my influence. So when you ask me a question about African American or being black and mobile, it's bigger than that. Because when I go places and I talk to kids and I talk to parents and I talk to athletes all over and they look at my story and they see a person, African American or not, they see something that they can relate to. It's bigger than race. It's more so of opening up a door for guys that don't want to be labeled.
Well, Stephen, he certainly has the platform. What's your reaction to what we just heard from Cam?
Well, I think that you heard the reporter, and I'm certainly not going to call out reporters. Everybody has a job to do, and I respect that. But you had the reporter going at him as if he instigated something when essentially he was answering a question. And at times, I think that we need to recognize as members of the Fourth Estate, as journalists, that you want to open a box and a guy goes in and he takes you up on your offer. Don't knock him for doing so. Cam Newton is a quarterback who happens to be great, who happens to be the eminent MVP as far as most of us is concerned. You asked him a question. He is a young black man. He answered the question, and he's not apologetic about it. I personally have no problem with it. And then we obviously have a situation where ESPN did a poll, and I wasn't sure that I was really too keen on that idea of it, to be quite honest with you, because on its face I didn't think it was necessary, but it's the worldwide leader for a reason, and it has a right to do what it believes is best. It's a touch on issues that permeate our society, and that's what it did here, so I applaud it. But let's look at the statistics. When they talk about this poll that went on, they said nearly 2 out of 3 fans, 62% overall, believe that any criticism of Cam Newton is because of his style of play on the field. 63% of white fans, 38% of black fans. Only 14% thinks it's because of just race. But then it goes further by saying, Skip, the number of people who think race is a part of how Cam Newton is perceived is significantly higher amongst blacks. Okay? 34% think the criticism is racially biased, while 38% think it's for his flashy style. What people need to understand is that we want to act like everybody's the same. We are all human beings. We are all human beings created by God, and and most of us are God-fearing and loving people. But the reality is that we are different. White folks are different than black folks. Black folks are different from Hispanic folks. The problem isn't the fact that we're different. It's that we're not willing to embrace our differences in a fashion that is not acerbic, that is not incendiary, that is not, at times evil. And instead of just embracing it and saying, okay, you think differently than I do, sometimes we use it to knock folks down. And that's what those are the kind of things that Cam was alluding to. When you are a quarterback, particularly when you look from a historical perspective, Skip, if you are a black quarterback, people perceived that you were at that position because your athleticism. Why did the issue of the black quarterback, or the plight of the black quarterback, become such a huge issue in NFL lore? It was because for so long the perception was out there that blacks weren't intelligent enough to play the position. That is a fact. That's how people felt. Well, where did black folks get that from? We created that ourselves. We walked around talking to folks and telling folks that we weren't intelligent enough to play the quarterback position. Hell no, that didn't happen. That was from other folks who perpetuated that stereotype. And so when you, from an historical perspective, had that to overcome, just because you overcame it to some degree, considering the fact that Cam Newton is now the 6th black quarterback to play in the Super Bowl, the 4th consecutive Super Bowl where a black quarterback was in the Super Bowl. Even though those issues have been overcome, the residue, the effect, is still there, because it's still fresh in the mind of the black community. It might not be fresh in the mind of Cam Newton because he overcame it. It might not be fresh in the mind of Russell Wilson. He overcame it. It might not be fresh in the mind of the Doug Williams of the world, okay, and people like that. Yeah. But it still resonates to a community, because those who don't play quarterback, those who are not playing football, still have to live in modern day society where constantly the challenges of being black are something that we deal with in a very profound fashion every single day. You can't find a black person in the United States of America that does not believe that they are judged differently, that there are not obstacles that they have to overcome just because of perception. And I think where a lot of white folks make the mistake, if I may say so, is that if you say something about one of them, folks embrace it as if you're talking about all white people. We have evolved as a society. Whatever was said and whatever was exercised and whatever was employed by white America in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s and even times before that, and even as late as the 70s, although there are still trials and tribulations to overcome, there is no question that we are a better society today than we were in years past. There's no question that we have advanced as a society. There are no question that throughout American history, it wasn't just blacks fighting on behalf of ourselves. There were white folks assisting blacks in fighting against racism, civil rights violations, and beyond. A matter of fact, if there were white people that were willing to step forward and assist black folks in their quest for equal rights and beyond, we may not have gotten to the points that we have gotten to. So once we understand that we are all in this together, and that when folks are pointing out the trials and tribulations that we endure from a black perspective, and we're pointing the finger at somebody white who happens to have done something to us, that is not saying, oh my goodness, all white folks are this way, all white folks are that way. We're saying that it's still a problem by some, albeit probably a small minority, but it's still something that we have to deal with, because that small minority might screech the loudest, might be heard, and might give the perception to taint their community in such a fashion that black folks are looking at and saying, what the hell is going on? What are you going to do about this? If we understand that, then we move forward. But when you have a reporter who's coming at Cam, and he's coming at Cam in such a way where he's saying to Cam Newton, well, you brought it up, and well, actually, that's not true. He was asked about it. And not only was he asked about it, he basically said, I'm different. You have never seen anybody like me. This is what I bring to the table, and as an African-American quarterback, I'm going to have some of these things to deal with. He did not sit there and say, white folks are this, white folks are this, white folks are that. What he said was, this is what I have to deal with. And by the way, how inconceivable is that? Cam Newton was, went to Florida, got pushed out of Florida, went to some no-name junior college, won a national championship, came back to Auburn, won a national championship, came to the pros, now he's in the Super Bowl, he was the Rookie of the Year, he was a Heisman Trophy winner, he has accomplished a bevy of things. But we also saw, and to some degree witnessed, a level of scrutiny that he received in the midst of all of that stuff that may very well still resonate with him. Who is anyone to question that about him and what he had to endure and how it may still sting? Who is anybody to sit there and assume that just because he's successful with the Carolina Panthers, that, oh my goodness, he's not going under any scrutiny? He's walking the streets of the Bible Belt in Charlotte, North Carolina. And even though they may be celebrating him now, it was always that way. That he never had to deal with any scrutiny. That he hasn't listened to people telling him to grow up. That he hasn't listened to people saying to him, we don't like the way that you are. You need to exercise some level of humility. How do we know about the emails that he received? How do we know what he was subjected to? Those are the kind of things that people need to take heed to. It's not to point the finger and say, you're at fault, you're wrong, you're evil, or what it is. It's nothing like that. It's just simply understanding that when you are different, you have different experiences. Black folks have different experiences than white folks in the United States of America. It is a fact. Now, we're overcoming it more and more every day. I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud, even prouder, to be a black man. But make no mistake about it, despite my proudness and whatever, it doesn't mean that some days the road ain't hard. And if it's hard for me, and if it's hard for Mr. $100 million man in Cam Newton with $60 million guaranteed, could you imagine how hard it is for the average brother out here? I can't even begin to describe that. So when Cam Newton opens his mouth and he speaks, he's not just speaking about himself. He's speaking on behalf of a community that is relatively voiceless. And somebody like him alludes to the platform that he has, because when he opens his mouth, you are forced to listen and thereby adjust yourself in such a fashion where you have to take heed to what he says, because the typical black man out here can open his mouth and sing to the high heavens. He can go on Twitter and Facebook. He can do anything he wants. Nobody is going to pay attention. You don't get to ignore Cam Newton. So as a result, Cam Newton is saying, I'm speaking and you can't ignore me the way most folks in my community are feeling ignored. I applaud that. I thank him for it. I appreciate it. And now we move forward.
This topic is getting trickier and trickier to talk about. I applauded what Cam initially said because I believe he spoke straight from his heart. And now I'm going to speak from mine. I am clearly a white guy, so I'm going to have a very different perspective than you bring to this. And yet I'm a white guy who had maybe some different experiences than most white guys did. If I can go back to my high school days, because I had a lot of rebel in me, my favorite athlete in my high school days, and it was a long time ago, was Muhammad Ali. You can ask my mama if I didn't have Ali's Sports Illustrated cover up on my wall where he's standing over Sonny Liston after he shocked him. And what did I love about Muhammad Ali? He had the guts to stand up as a black man, obviously, and brag and boast and trash talk and back it up. Time and time again, he backed it up, and I loved him for that. My second favorite athlete, I had his Sports Illustrated poster up on my wall, was Joe Namath. Why? Because he dared to be different, to shatter the mold of the quarterback. At that point, mostly the white quarterback. In fact, it was all white quarterback at that point. And yet, Joe Namath, as we all know, he wore white cleats when everybody else wore black cleats. And it wasn't because it was a white statement, it was an anti-white statement that he was making. He had the long hair flipping out from under his helmet, and he was Broadway Joe. He lived the nightlife, and he loved it and made no apologies for it. Which brings us to the present with Mr. Cameron Newton, who stood up and made a very strong and bold statement straight from his heart. I'm going to say it again, just to reiterate what started this. I've said since day one, I'm an African-American quarterback that scares people because they haven't seen nothing that they can compare me to. That's the quote. And it left me wondering just a little bit. I loved what he said, but I had to read into it. This is why that reporter was trying to follow up, say, can you elaborate? Because I think, if I can speak for some white people, not all of them, but some, it left us wondering exactly what that meant, because it was a little cryptic. It left room for interpretation. Is he talking about we haven't seen anything like the way this quarterback celebrates on the field? Or is it, as some of our analysts have tried to convince me of, that he was strictly talking about his abilities? We've never seen this combination of abilities on the football field. This size, this strength, this ability to run like a tailback and throw like a drop-back passer, as well as anyone we've ever seen. It's a lethal combination for the opponent. So is that what we're talking about, or are we just talking about celebrations? And it left me wondering, because he identified, remember, he didn't have to do the racial identification. Did he volunteer that? He wasn't asked about being an African-American quarterback. He went there, right? So, Stephen A., as you know, unfortunately, we're talking about a young man here, but when you broach that subject, and I loved it that he broached it because it's made for some great dialogue, especially between the two of us right here. But you have to be careful that you elaborate to the point we all understand where you're going, because I'm still not exactly sure where he was going. I'm not sure. I think I know, but I'm not sure. You think you know, but he didn't get into details about, is he responding to criticism? And if so, which criticism? That one woman in Nashville, I keep telling you, that's the only public criticism I know of. If there's private criticism or past criticism that he has endured, which well could be the fact, I almost wish he had detailed his past criticism, okay? Okay, now let me go one other direction before you respond to this.
Sure.
My history with the black quarterback is lengthy and historic, because I had the privilege of covering the first consistent starting black quarterback in the National Football League in the mid-'70s for the old Los Angeles Rams, James Harris. Knew him well. His mantra to me was, please don't call me a black quarterback. I'm just a quarterback. James Harris wasn't very athletic. If you want to know the truth, he was shattering the mold. He was as beautiful a passer as I have ever seen as a 6'5" drop-back quarterback. I spent a whole week with Doug Williams before he was drafted. Wrote a big splash bombshell story in the LA Times. This kid is special. Not very athletic, to tell you the truth. 6'5" pure drop-back quarterback, right out of the Peyton Brady mold. Really? Won the first Super Bowl as a black quarterback. Great. And then through the years, I went back last night and I totaled up how many black quarterbacks have we seen start consistently in the National Football League, start significant games? We're up to 41. So we've come a long, long ways. Would you believe that over the last 15 years, we've had 4 number 1 overall picks as a black quarterback. And over the last 20 years, we've had 22 black quarterbacks drafted in the first or second round. Is that not progress? Is that not significant? To me, it's to the point where, if I may, you can laugh at me if you want, I don't see color anymore. I just see quarterbacks, okay? So it stunned me that all of a sudden I had to recalibrate my thinking as a white guy and say, oh, wait a second, Cam wants to be called a black quarterback because he's embracing his culture and his roots. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. So I had to reposition my thinking about it because it's breakthrough. It's trailblazing, okay? We've come full circle from don't call me a black quarterback to do call me a black quarterback, okay? Go ahead.
Allow me to help you out here. I'll preface my comments by saying what I'm about to say is about the white-black dynamic. It's not about Skip Bayless. I sit across from you every day, and I'll vouch for your fairness and your open mind. You say what you say, and you feel what you feel, and you're very open about it. And one of the things that I think that folks in white America don't realize about black folk is that if you're open and honest about where you stand and why, we respectfully disagree with you, but we respect the fact that you're open about it. What black folks in America have a problem with is that proverbial iron curtain per se, or that glass ceiling.
I hear you.
Where you can't. It's something other than a meritocracy. Okay. You ain't judged on just merit. When you talk about Cam Newton, and you talk about what he said and what the reporter asked, what you're missing. And I'm not trying to call out the reporter in any way. He was doing his job, and I respect that. But essentially what you're saying is you wanted Cam Newton to come out and to detail exactly what he was talking about. Let me tell you something that black folk know about a lot of white folks in America that y'all don't realize. When you want the details, it's so you can pick apart what to knock down. When in fact, we're talking about the overall ambiance, cadence, and perspective that you're bringing to the equation more so than the actual facts of a particular situation.
What if it just closes your case? What if the details close your case?
Well, what I'm saying to you is this. Cam Newton can talk about emails. Cam Newton can talk about being attacked. Cam Newton can talk about being addressed on a particular incident. And you'll have white folks in America that says, well, that's this and that's that, but that's not necessarily me. I don't necessarily feel that way. But what he's pointing out is that it's something that has permeated throughout his life. It's something that he has experienced. And we have gotten to a point in our society where we want specific explanations to knock down stuff rather than deal with what's real. White folks have perceptions about black guys that may act the way that Cam Newton. You're trying to tell me that it's beyond the pale to imagine, to assume that white folks look at Cam Newton and they say, he needs more humility. He needs to calm down. He needs to appreciate the position that he's in. Okay? You trying to tell me that in corporate America, when black folks and white folks are working, a white guy is sitting there and is like, hey, congratulations, I'm supposed to be here. Whereas a black person is treated as if they should be thankful they are there. These are the kind of things. Now, whether they're factual or not is not the point. The point is, that's how black folks feel. It's entirely different than white folks. And no matter how many times you say it, there is a different perspective that is adopted depending on which group you are from. I am very, very big on respect. I'm very, very big on merit. Why? Because it's the only thing that I can gauge as to whether or not true fairness actually exists. When people try to convolute the argument, what happens is they're trying to have an escape route, to sit there and have plausible deniability in their favor, to say that's not true, that's not true. But what you cannot deny is the fact that this man feels the way that he feels. You have to deal with that. And by asking him, the more you ask him and implore him to be specific, then you're asking him to engage in a level of history that he may not want to go down that road. And more importantly, the more specifics you ask for, the more you're trying to knock down his perspective. You're not going to knock down his perspective because what he feels is what he feels. You have to deal with what he feels as opposed to what you interpret his facts to be.
Okay, if I deal with it, then it makes me feel guilt and shame
Right.
for what went on before me.
Sure.
And
that's not right.
I can't fix it. I try to be the best I can be right here, right now, and in the present.
Right.
And I don't want to feel guilt and shame because I'm trying to do it the right way.
Well, let me tell you this. I would make the argument that's how Barack Obama became the president of the United States. 69 million people voted for this man. There's only 30-plus million blacks in America.
Okay.
So where the other 30-plus million come from? It came from a generation of folks who obviously felt a level of guilt because of what has happened in this country historically.
Or maybe they just thought he was the best candidate. Is that possible?
No, not 30-plus million. 30-plus million? Come on now. Again, this is what I'm talking about, because what I'm trying to say to you, of course there are many millions who obviously felt that he was the better candidate.
Twice.
That's
Twice
right,
they did.
twice.
Yes.
But there is no question that there was guilt on a part of at least a small segment of this nation, which includes millions, who obviously felt that way. What I'm trying to say to you is when something like that is a fact, that obviously it speaks to what has happened historically. Now, you can sit there and say, it's a different day. Well, damn it, then treat it like it's a different day. Instead of sitting there looking for excuses to knock it down and knock down those perceptions, simply stand up and say, hey, he's got a point, but you know what? It's a new day, and we're going to move forward, and we're going to do things differently, and then everybody will be fine, as opposed to sitting there and going to your default position and acting like it's overblown, it's a bit exaggerated, it's not true. You can't say that to black people, because they will tell you, no way in hell do we feel that way. You could talk until the high heavens, but the divide will be as wide as the Pacific Ocean, because that perspective and that perception will never fade from the psyche of an African American community. It will never happen.
Well, speaking of the Pacific, thank you. Well deserved. Speaking of the Pacific, that's why I'm back to specifics, because I need some details. If you were upset, Cam Newton, with X, Y, or Z, and you say, don't give me details because the white community wants to shoot them down, I just want to know what they are so we can fix those details. And I don't know them. I know one woman who wrote a letter.
But how do you fix an email? How do you fix him walking
what's
down?
an email? I don't know an email.
Let me explain. How do you fix him walking down the streets of Charlotte or walking in some other city and somebody said, how do you fix when he's walking through the tunnel? Do you remember a footage of LeBron James in the playoffs and some lady literally screamed something so awful at him? LeBron just turned around and just looked at her like, what? You know, and everybody was like, wow, that was really, really bad. But they never showed her face. You never knew her name, but she screamed at him from the stands. I'm saying to you, something like that. He didn't talk about it after the game, but something like that. You don't think he goes home and says, wow, damn, that was real mean what she said. That was real evil. It's really bad that somebody would feel that way. I'm trying to say, you know how many incidents a player, particularly of African American descent, can point to talk about how they went through that, they endured that? That's very, I can't even repeat over FCC airwaves the stuff that gets said to me on a weekly basis. I'm just a different kind of brother. It don't matter to me. Bring it.
I got it.
I'm fine. But other people ain't like that. Other people ain't like that.
Look, is there racism still in this country? You better believe there is. I'm the first to embrace the fact there is racism.
We've improved
right?
as a society, though. We have.
I got it. But in this case, I think a lot of white people are still sitting back thinking, man, we came so far in pro football trying to not see color at quarterback. And here's a kid that I think a lot of white people love. They do. Yeah. Okay. But
not
it's hard,
everyone.
but it makes everybody, the white people, uncomfortable. Like, what did we do wrong here? We don't know.
Skip, 100 million white folks can be fans of Cam Newton, and 1 million can hate him. But the things that the millions say may be so piercing, so stinging, that it stays with you.
Okay.
And so it's
but I don't know the million. I don't know anything.
But he does.
Okay.
He does. And that's all that matters. He does. We're not saying, if he sat there and said, white America feels this way, you'd have a point. He's like, no, but the experiences that you go through, although from a very small few, can sting in such a way
Absolutely.
that it stays with you. That's That's being black in America, bro.
Okay.
It is.
But I keep hearing all through the last 2 weeks, Cam has been so criticized this football season. And I keep saying, by whom? Where? How? One woman wrote a letter and then apologized for what she wrote to the letter to the editor, the Charlotte
I got you.
Observer, right?
I got you.
Okay. I don't know.
Riveting debate to start off the show, guys, right? Brandon Marshall in the house. Thank you. So good to see you.
I like your dress.
Thank you. Brandon, the crowd approves this message, clearly. And I also want to mention you are joining us courtesy of Audience Sports and AT&T. We'll get into that later. But please tell me what I was just reading on your Starbucks cup here. You could have shared.
You guys woke me up so early, 6:45, so I went to Starbucks and, said, what's your name? I said, I own Stephen A.
Round of applause.
You want some? You want some?
May I comment? May I comment?
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you know this, but no receiver who wears the most pom-poms for Jay Cutler could ever own me. Could ever own me. That could not happen. Now,
I turned those pom-poms in, man.
yeah, you did. You did. It took you about 5 years, but you finally did.
9.
I tried to help you out. I tried to help you.
No, but listen, he has a lot of potential, and I think that, he can, potential.
Let's not go to Cutler yet. First.
We're not going to Cutler.
Okay.
I just want to make this last statement, and then we can move forward.
Sure.
You said a man that's been in the league for 10 years has potential. That's all I got to say. That's all I got to say. Let's move on.
Hold on. Before we move on, you guys had an awesome debate about race.
Sure.
And I want to say one thing on that, just in case we don't get to it, right? Every single day, I walk to the grocery store or drive to the grocery store or go to the doctor. I get out of my car or I'm coming out of the grocery store or my doctor's office. I see someone that doesn't look like me, and the first thing they do, they grab their purse, or they, get scared, they run to their car. It's every single day.
In the middle of broad daylight.
Every single day. So I say that because there's still racism in America, in the world, and I think the issue is we can't relate to one another because we're not in each other's shoes. So I think that it's time for us to continue to have this discussion, change the narrative, and maybe we'll see change. But I wanted to say that me, I have Mercedes-Benz keys in my pocket or out, and I'm walking to my car, and people still look at me like I'm going to steal from them. So I just wanted to say that.
Fair point.
It's 2016, and it's a shame we still have to keep having this conversation. I appreciate you sharing that, though, because it's a conversation we'll continue to have here on First Take. Now, I couldn't see earlier when you made your Super Bowl pick, but you went with Carolina?
No.
You went with
I went with Denver.
You did?
Yes.
You did? Are you the first to go with Denver? You are. Brandon, you know what? I didn't even see that as I was going to bump. You are the very first. I love this. Please tell us why you're going.
Well, first of all, I was drafted by the Denver Broncos in 2006.
Of course.
And second, I'm on Inside the NFL, and a couple weeks ago, I picked the Broncos to win the Super Bowl 27-24, but against the Arizona Cardinals. So I'll say this, and I said it before. I really believe Carolina Panthers are going to win, but I can't renege. So I'm going to stick with my bet. I'm going to stick with my bet.
Loyal to it. Skip's had to do that before, right?
You see, Skip's looking at me, and I was looking at him to say something to you because, you his boy. Because if it were me, he would have said, what happened to the courage of your convictions? but because it's you,
I like
he let you slide on that. I need you to explain, because obviously it's a very emotional pick on your part, because you're an emotional kind of guy. You're such a good guy that you get emotional a lot of times. You see what I'm saying? And so I don't know. It depends on what you're talking. Anytime it's one of your teams or one of your boys, that's where you going, regardless of the facts that lie before you. So go ahead and explain, since you picked Denver, even though you know Carolina's going to win, you picked Denver. Tell us how this is going to happen. How is Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos going to fill this out?
Well, first of all, you got to look at this. I think both defensive units can argue their place in NFL history when you really look at it. I mean, when you look at Denver's defense and how they're built, it's individuals. You got a bunch of superstars. They play man-to-man coverage. They let these guys Ware and Von Miller, they let them loose on the edge. And like last week, they're sacking Tom Brady, or a couple weeks ago, sacking Tom Brady in less than 2 seconds. But then when you go to the Carolina Panthers, and this is a defense I'm familiar with because we ran something similar to that in Chicago, these guys play on one string. Just watch how they communicate before the snap, during the snap, after the snap. You're never going to see a more well-rounded, on one-page defense. And I don't know what the hell I just said, but but what I'm trying to say is this team plays as a unit, and when you play as a team, you win as a team, you're that much stronger than anyone else you can go against.
Go ahead, Skip.
So can you make a case for Peyton Manning, nearing 40 years of age, playing well enough to beat this Carolina team led by Cam Newton?
Yeah. The way I say it is a couple years ago when we brought in Coach Mark Trestman, that's when I found total respect for the quarterback position. I understood why they make so much money, and they deserve it because there's a lot on their shoulders. So for Peyton Manning, I believe he wins up here. He's done it his whole career. 80% of our game, 80% of life is mental. And there's no difference here. If you know where you're going before you're going there, you have a 100% chance of being successful.
So speaking of mental, you just had your best year of your career, and you were approaching age 32.
Yep.
So explain how that happened. Was it 80% mental, what just happened with the New York Jets?
Well, yeah, so you guys see that I have on my Project 375 shirt and lime green stuff. So you guys had me on before, and I talked about mental health, and it's so serious to me. So for the past 5 years, I've dove into this space, and I spend more time working out my brain than I do my body. And I think we saw that last year, whether it's overcoming injuries, is getting traded. And I got traded from a place that I really love. Like, that was my dream team. That was my dream city. I still love that place. I'm still a fan of that place.
Which place?
Chicago.
Okay, because I was thinking Denver, Chicago. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Chicago. So I say that because sport and life to me are the same. And I say this all the time. 80% of it is here. But we spend so much time working out in the weight room or trying to physically get through situations. If I was a GM, if I was a head coach, I will put my team clinician next door to my weightlifting coach. But we don't see that. We have the weightlifting coach in the front of the building or wherever on the first floor. Then we find a space on the second or third floor for our team doctor. And it shouldn't be that way, because if my players are healthy here and inside, they're going to be better on the field. And there's no difference between that and the workplace or government or corporation.
I tell you something right now. I'm not the one to really get into this because I'm the one in the worst shape of everybody up here. But I would tell you, other than my friend J.J. Smith with the green smoothie drinks, I don't know anybody. Well, she's a best-selling author. She's big time. Oh. But the thing about it is that other than her, I'm thinking about this guy and how much he's in the gym and how much he takes care of himself. I'm thinking about you and mental health awareness and what you do to take care of your mind. And it's amazing what it provokes you to take care of. When I'm down, when I'm stressed or anything like that, you realize the power of the mind and how that could just deteriorate you. It's so I applaud you in your quest, and I really, really appreciate that. But I got to get on you about this.
Before you go, did I tell you I own you?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
And didn't I knock that down by bringing up Jay Cutler? The point is that I got to get on you about this. The New York Jets.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Last game of the regular season. A postseason berth is on the line. Brandon Marshall's mind was right. Body was right. Had the quarterback that he wanted. That was a hell of a lot better than Jay Cutler ever was.
No, I can't. Don't say that.
It's the truth. Stop it. Stop it. Ryan Fitzpatrick this year was better than Jay Cutler has ever been. That is a fact. Don't argue with me about that.
2009,
stop
Jay?
it. Just stop it. His non-playoff self. Here's the deal, okay? I asked the question. The question. What happened to the New York Jets? What happened?
Oh, man. So, listen, coming into this year.
Gather your thoughts.
No, I've been saying this for a month. I felt like we were the first team in history to overachieve and underachieve in the same year. You know, who would have thought that we would have won 10 games? I know internally our goal was to win 12. We really believe that, and I think you have to believe that. I think that's part of our psyche as players. You know, it doesn't matter if you're the Cleveland Browns, Oakland Raiders, sorry guys in the Bay, or the New York Jets. We believe every year. I love you guys. I love you guys. We believe every year is our year to be, you know, the best at our position. We believe every year is the year that we can take it. But the truth of the matter is some teams don't have a chance. But I honestly felt like it took us half the season to bring it together. And once we did that, I think we went on a 4 or 5 game winning streak. And then we get to the Buffalo Bills, and we had a major letdown. And it's not because we weren't prepared, but, you know, to be totally honest with you, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it because we're coming off a great win against New England where I felt like we dominated them, and the game should have been over in the third quarter, but it ended up going into overtime, and we all know what happened there. So I don't know if it was, you know, one of those things where we're emotionally spent after that game, but there definitely was a drop-off in that first half in Buffalo.
Well, I will say this to you. You'll never own me, but you did a hell of a job this year.
Thank
Wait,
you.
I got a last quick question.
Okay. Go for it.
So how much better is Jay Cutler than Ryan Fitzpatrick?
Oh. So I would say this. I think Jay Cutler has he's a top 5 talent with his arm. He's super smart. You know that Vandy guy.
Thank you.
You know, for some reason it hasn't all come together.
For some reason.
I mean, he's had so many offensive coordinators, so many different wide receivers.
Correct.
Ryan Fitzpatrick, I think this second half of his career is going to be an amazing one because he's with this guy, Chan Gailey. He's comfortable. He really owns this offense, and that's what you want out of the quarterback position. Yeah, I can talk about.
Stop right there. Kaepernick. They're saying that he may want to come to New York. How you feel about that?
I don't want Kaepernick. I think he's good. I think he's good. My guy's Fitz. It's nothing against Kaepernick. It's nothing against Kaepernick.
And your guy used to be Geno when you first got there, right?
Of course, he's still my guy.
I know.
He's still my guy. But what I'm saying is, I have my quarterbacks and I'm good. But can I say this? All week, I'm going to be doing some of your stuff, some broadcasting, and follow me on Audience Sports Network.
You will?
Okay? Because I'm trying to jump into this business.
You're already in it.
I'm in it.
What do you mean you're jumping in? You're already in.
All right, well, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Audience Sports Network.
Shameless plug. Please, you're dropping the profound knowledge all morning, Brandon. We so appreciate your career highs this season. Incredible. And all the work you're doing with mental health awareness. I meditate every day religiously. Helps keep me sane. You can't hear me.
I'm Eric Carabell. On the latest edition of the Fantasy Focus Baseball Podcast, Cespedes and Upton find jobs. Who do we like better? Kyle Schwarber, Addison Russell, positional scarcity, and hash browns. Find us on the Listen tab at the ESPN app.
First take on the road here. Super Bowl 50. We've got the best fans up here early waiting outside. We so appreciate them. Fort Mason Center, this beautiful backdrop behind us. We got some Raiders chants going. All right. So you guys might assume that the 44-4 Warriors have it all, right? But some think they're missing one big piece, and that would be free agent to be Kevin Durant. A new report in, Adrian Wojnarowski of Yahoo Sports, the Warriors are significant frontrunners to sign KD if he leaves OKC. The report does go on to say Durant isn't close to gone in Oklahoma City. Stephen A., what's your take on this?
Well, my take on it is that once again, Adrian has done an outstanding job. I've known him for years. He does a sensational job of covering the NBA. Let's give him credit where credit is due. He's not a part of ESPN, but I respect my colleagues, and he does an outstanding job. He's right about this because it's something that the Warriors have alluded to. It doesn't change what I reported months ago about KD and how he was talking during the offseason about how if things don't work out in OKC, that LA would be an interesting destination in the post-Kobe era. The problem is that he didn't want to go to a moribund franchise that has surpassed such a pathetic state of affairs that somebody needs to just eradicate the franchise for a year just to remind us, let us remember what they used to be instead of what they are. But, you know, because now, obviously, with the Lakers being as pathetic as they are, it's the consideration of being a Los Angeles Laker has dissipated dramatically. But originally, it was about the Lakers, him going there first, potentially Russell Westbrook if he decides to leave OKC, going to LA as well. But everybody's looking at KD right now because KD is going to sign an extension. He wants to test free agency. He wants to see what his worth is going to be, even though I don't understand why, because he's going to get the max wherever he goes because he deserves it. But he also wants to be a title contender. I know for a fact that the Warriors would like to get him because who wouldn't want to get KD? My question is, how are you going to pull it off? They're committed to $80 million next year, this summer. I mean, you just paid Draymond Green about $82 million. You paid Klay Thompson about $70. You got to pay Steph Curry after next year because he's grossly underpaid. Yep. Now, the new TV money coming in that's going to elevate the salary cap exponentially puts them in a position where they could probably make a few moves, and who knows. But my thinking along, and I alluded to this last night on SportsCenter, Skip, was this, and nobody's brought this up. If you're KD and you decide to go to Golden State because you're desperate for a championship, to me, that's considerably worse than LeBron ever leaving Cleveland to go to South Beach. Here's why. LeBron didn't have much of a team. LeBron had to carry a hefty workload. LeBron looked at his career, looked at his future, and is like, I don't know if I can continue to do this. I damn sure can't do this by myself. So he goes to Miami, joins D. Wade and Chris Bosh, and they do what they do. But let's be real. It was Pat Riley that added a Shane Battier. It was Pat Riley that added a Ray Allen. It was Pat Riley that drafted Mario Chalmers of the world, the Norris Coles of the world, etc., etc. So Pat Riley may have gotten LeBron James, and they certainly wouldn't have won a title without LeBron and D. Wade, but there was a team that was put around them. I don't believe Kevin Durant has that excuse. Kevin Durant is in Oklahoma City. The Golden State Warriors are legit. They're the reigning defending NBA champions. They're the best team in the NBA. They play like it all year long. They've got the best shooting backcourt in history as far as I'm concerned. Draymond Green is outstanding and all of this other stuff. But we all know outside of Klay, outside of Steph, everybody's expendable for Kevin Durant. And that includes Draymond as much as I love him. Everybody's expendable for Kevin Durant, even though I don't think you're going to interrupt that flow. My point is, look at the Oklahoma City Thunder. What possible excuse could you need to leave them to go to Golden State for? You got Westbrook, you got Ibaka, you've got Cantor, you've got a nucleus in place that's a title contention. So if you jumped ship to go to Golden State, to me that looks considerably worse than if LeBron ever leaving Cleveland to go to Miami, because Oklahoma State, from a talent perspective, maybe not coaching, maybe not chemistry and cohesion, but from a true raw talent perspective, are as close to comparable to the Golden State Warriors than anybody in the NBA. So if you're Kevin Durant and you left that to join Golden State, to me that's worse. Nobody's brought that up. Adrian knows what he's talking about, I can tell you that much. And there's little nuggets that you can disagree with here and there. Mm-hmm. For the most part, this brother covers the NBA. Sure. On an elite level and deserves credit for that. But I just don't understand why Kevin Durant would do that. There is one key difference between these Thunder and these Golden State Warriors. The Thunder too often play selfishly. Yes. And this other team, an all-time great team, plays nothing but unselfishly. Yeah, I was just talking talent. Okay, talent. All right, I got you. And by the way, the whole prospect of this is staggering to me because I've developed so much awe and respect for these Warriors. I've never seen anything like this, a force of nature. Yeah. And the prospect of adding Kevin Durant to that mix is just mind-blowing to me. It's like, just cancel the NBA season. Yes. We don't need it. That's right. We just give them the trophy every year. That's right. You would. Okay. I mean, if you hold on to Draymond, Klay, and Steph, and you get Kevin Durant, there's nothing to talk about. It's over. It's over. Okay. So here's the point. You cannot rule out the Thunder here. We have a long way to go. And if by chance the Thunder broke through and won it this year, all bets would be off because maybe he would recommit and stay with Russell Westbrook in Oklahoma City. I don't know. But the point is, this is what I have been told, so what I'm leaning toward believing is that sure, Golden State considers itself a significant front runner, but Kevin doesn't see them as a significant front runner at this point. Look,
Does he have nothing but great respect for the way they play basketball? Yes. But Adrian pointed out in his story that maybe he and Steph are close because they share a spiritual bond. They believe the same thing spiritually. I'm told that's a bit exaggerated, that they don't know each other that well.
It is. That's why I said little nuggets over there, right?
Okay, got it. So is now Kevin Durant intrigued by the New York Knicks? You better believe he is. So we're still far from the finish line, but he is now newly intrigued by the Knicks. Is he intrigued by Golden State? Sure he is. He's also intrigued by my San Antonio Spurs. He loves him some Popovich. He would love to play for Coach Popovich and with, obviously, a Kawhi and a LaMarcus, because they've got a future with a Kevin Durant with those two pieces in place. And then, obviously, in the end, he's got a long ways to go where he's not leaning any direction right now. So I don't want to overstate this, but I don't think in his mind that Golden State is a significant front runner.
Well, you're right. Golden State definitely has him on their hit list, but that doesn't mean he has them. Like I told you before, at the beginning in the offseason, he was talking about L.A., assuming L.A. was going to be remotely competitive, and thinking along the lines that a year later, Russell Westbrook may follow if things don't work out in OKC. Now, if they win the chip in OKC, all bets are off. They'll stay because that's really their thing. You've got Kevin Durant and his people, wanting him in a major market like in L.A., like a New York. They want him to win, of course. He wants to win. That's his priority. And he is his own man. Nobody will make the decision for Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant will do that for himself.
Yeah.
But the aspirations that others have for him, well, he's invited them to be a part of his inner circle for a reason. And so when you look, it's only a couple of dudes, but they matter. And so when you look at it from that perspective, anything's possible. Washington's on the outside looking in. I don't know what's going to happen. It's a bad situation in Washington. Miami thinks they've got a shot. Who knows what will happen there?
Sure.
So you look at it from that perspective, and we'll see what happens.
The highest degree of difficulty, the one that would take the most guts to turn around, would be to go to New York, play in the Big Apple, and try to make the Knicks champions again, as you always say, since when was it? 1970, what was it, 3? Or
1973.
Yep.
1973. Durant in the Eastern Conference with Melo and Porzingis would be attractive. But I will tell you this, I don't know this because obviously I have not spoken to Kevin Durant, but let's be clear, from what I'm told, one of the aversions Durant has is being in the same conference as LeBron. I don't understand it. I'm not sure I even believe that, because to me it's harder to be in the West.
I agree.
It's harder to be in the West, but that is what some people have said. In other words, some people are your kryptonite, and LeBron is considered his kryptonite. I don't know why, but that's what has been said.
KD averages 30 points per game against the Warriors. It'll be very interesting to see where he lands, and we'll certainly track it every step of the way. We have traveled a long way from our home in Bristol, Connecticut. 3 time zones and nearly 3,000 miles later, we have moved coast to coast, and we're here in the Bay Area ahead of Super Bowl 50 at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. And First Take is at General's residence of Fort Mason in San Francisco, and we are so happy to be here. Our crowd's fired up, got here early. We so appreciate them. And a beautiful backdrop behind us. But we're really excited about our next guest, the Falcons' all-time leader in passing yards and touchdowns, and his Falcons, the only team to beat the Carolina Panthers this season. We welcome to the desk Matt Ryan, courtesy of Gillette Fusion Pro Shield. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you guys for having me.
We appreciate it. So you went with the Panthers, the pick board. That had to be a little tough for you. How come you think they're going to win it?
Well, yeah, it's definitely tough to pick somebody in division. But I know, having gone against them twice this year, they're about as complete a football team that I've played against during my career. I mean, they're solid on the defensive side of the ball. They play great offense. They're good on special teams. They don't beat themselves. I just think they're a team that's tough to beat.
From the quarterback position, what has to happen in order to exploit them? I don't know, because we hear about Peyton Manning, the health, even though he's looked decent in the playoffs. Can he throw outside the numbers? We're thinking about Josh Norman being on one end, but obviously Charles Tillman is out. Quillen Finnegan, we don't know what he's going to be able to do. How do you beat them from the quarterback spot?
Well, I think, the first time we played them, we got behind so early, and that's what they've been able to do all year. I mean, they've been able to start as fast as anybody in the league. The second time that we played them, we were able to stay in that ball game, and we were able to stay balanced on offense. I think when you go against their defense, if you become one-dimensional, you have no chance. But if you're able to stay balanced, run the ball, match up your play-action passing with your run game, their linebackers are so good at getting downhill and defending the run that you can make some yards behind them throwing with that play-action pass. I think that's what we did really well the second time we played them. And then you have to make a couple explosive plays throughout the game. We had a long touchdown to Julio that kind of changed the momentum in that game. I think that's the recipe for success.
By the way, I think Peyton Manning has watched him a whole bunch of Matt Ryan tape here because you did give them the blueprint for how to do this. Now I want to go one level deeper here. On third down in that game against Carolina that you won 20-13 in Atlanta, on third down you went 7 for 9 throwing the football. Now that's pretty great. That's hard to beat because it allowed you to control the clock 36 minutes to only 24 for Cam and company. Now to your point, you only rushed for 77 yards, but you kept trying. 30 times you ran the football, and you were getting less than 3 yards a carry, but you just kept saying, no, let the clock run, and then when it comes to third and long, I'm going to have to find Roddy or Julio or whomever for a gain to keep the football.
That's it. I mean, we didn't run the ball really well, but we stayed with it, and what that does is it doesn't allow their pass rushers to just pin their ears back and get after you for 60 minutes, and that was huge for us. And then we were really efficient on third down. I think we were 7 and 9 passing the ball, but we had a third and 14. 9 out of 15 overall. Yeah, we had a third and 14. I think that went for a 70-yard touchdown play too. So I mean, it's one of those things that. You have to play great on third down, and it's difficult to do. But you have to continue to run the ball because their defensive line is too good to match up passing the ball 45, 50 times. So what did you see? They're mostly zone, I assume that's what you saw mostly. Where did you, without getting too deep into secrets, but what vulnerability did you find in their zone windows? Well, I feel like the strength of their defense for sure is their front seven. I think they've got 2 of the best linebackers in the game. Their front 4 is about as good as it gets. In the back end, Josh Norman's a great player, but there are some holes to that. They're good players, but that's not the strength of their defense. We always felt like, regardless of whether Josh was out there, we had a guy that it doesn't matter who you line up against. He's an advantage for us. So that was one of the things that we had going for us. Denver's got some talent at the wide receiver position too that can go out there and make plays. But that to me is the area where if you're going to beat them, you have to get after their secondary in certain spots.
What can Denver's defense do against Cam Newton? You've watched this offense as well.
Cam's a beast. I mean, he really is. He's had an unbelievable year. But I've seen it, since he's been in the league. I mean, their record hasn't been what it was this year, but he's had some great games against us in the past. He's just tough to defend because, when you get to 3rd and 5 and their pass rushers are coming up the field, they can pull a guard and run quarterback power and get 6 yards. They bring all 11 guys, onto the field on offense, and that makes it extremely difficult to defend. What Denver does as well as anybody, though, is force turnovers. They did a great job of that in the AFC Championship game, and certainly if you're going to be successful against Carolina, you've got to try and create some turnovers.
By the way, forgive me for saying this, but I do not appreciate what you did to my Dallas Cowboys in the second half of that game at Jerry World.
I appreciated it very much.
You picked us to pieces. In fact, we were ahead 28-17 thanks to Brandon Weeden in the first half.
The good old days.
This guy went berserk throwing to Julio in the second. It was like men and boys, candy from babies. I've never seen anything quite like it.
It was we needed more of that this year.
Yes,
we couldn't find it for bits of the year, but that was some of the best ball that we played the entire year was the second half of that game. And we got everybody involved. Julio obviously is such a focal point of our offense, but Devontae Freeman, that was a game for him that I felt like really put himself on the map for the year and propelled him to go to the Pro Bowl, and I thought he did a great job all season for us.
What's going on with you guys? I mean, why has Atlanta been struggling? I mean, they've got you got Julio. I don't understand why y'all have struggled over the last couple of years.
Well, I think, particularly this year, I think we were more inconsistent than we've been in the past. I think, we've had 3 years that we haven't been able to get back to the playoffs. And when we were at our best, whether it be 2010, 2012, I felt like we were a very consistent football team from what we were week to week. That same team showed up. And we haven't been that way the last couple of years. I think this year we had opportunities to finish ball games, and we didn't do that. And we kept ourselves in a lot of games, which you need to do in this league, but we didn't finish the way that we needed to at the end for a number of different reasons. But that's what we've got to get back to. We've got to be consistent finishers week in and week out.
Last quick question, quick thought on this. How much has Peyton lost, in your view, at this point in his career?
I don't know. He's got so many different ways to beat you, and that's one of the things that has always been, I think, one of his strengths. He could beat you with his arm, he could beat you with his brain, he could beat you with the run game, getting it going the right way.
I think you're saying he's lost a good bit. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, but I hate saying anything about one of the, the GOATs. He's one of the best of all time, and I think if there's anybody that can pull it out one time and go out there and play, a great game, it's him.
All right.
Matt, I hear you come with gifts.
I got gifts, so I came for Stephen A. and Skip.
You too. Get all the love.
Yeah, so I brought the Gillette Fusion Pro Shield.
I use Gillette.
I need it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
But yeah, I brought it for you guys. It's going to keep you clean. You guys already look great, but I think this can help. It'll protect and shield your face, which is important.
I need it back. I need it back. I need it back.
You're quite
Thank
the
you very
salesman.
much.
Matt, thank you so much for the
All right.
time. We so appreciate it. Enjoy Super Bowl week. Thank you so much. First take coming to you from the Fort Mason Center. So this just in a short story in the New York Daily News, Manish Mehta says that Colin Kaepernick wants out of San Francisco and his preferred destination, New York, but not the Giants, the New York Jets. Kaepernick has 5 years left on a 6-year, $114 million extension that he signed with the Niners. Stephen A., what's your take on this story, Kaplan and Gangrene?
My take is I don't like it. I mean, I like Colin Kaepernick. I think he can play. I think that he has tremendous upside, and I think in an environment like New York, he could potentially excel. The problem is you'd be having to risk alienate Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's accustomed to playing with his offensive coordinator, Chan Gailey, who's mastered the system, who's gained the confidence of his teammates because of what he was able to do on the football field this year. And here's the reality. This subject is really about Colin Kaepernick. And here's why it's so important. Well, forgive me, I said Cam Newton. I'm at the Super Bowl, ain't I? So I'm sorry, excuse me.
We knew what you meant.
Colin Kaepernick. Here's the problem. Colin Kaepernick isn't the most accurate passer in the world, but there's no doubt in my mind he can be productive and he can get it done. The problem with Kaepernick is his attitude. And what I mean by that is that when you're playing that quarterback position, you need to be an individual that the troops around you want to play for, not just with. Everybody else you can play with. But the quarterback is somebody you need to play for. Because the quarterback is basically the coach on the football field. He's pulling all the strings. And if you don't want to follow him, you're not a real team. This is why when we talk about Manziel and all that stuff, we'll get into all of that later. There's so many questions and there's so many strong opinions about him. Because if you're not playing the quarterback position, there are things that we could gloss over and tolerate. But because of how important the quarterback position is, the responsibilities, the onus placed on your shoulders are more significant than it is on any other position on a football field. So if you are an individual that people are questioning your attitude, your willingness to go all out, your commitment to excellence, your attitude as it pertains to, do you really care about the next man and uplifting him? That's not a responsibility that seems fair to place on one individual when we're talking about a professional sports team. But unquestionably, it applies to the quarterback position. You got to be somebody that inspires dudes to play with you and for you. And if you're not that guy, and you're just another player that wears the same uniform as those guys, you cannot be the quarterback for that team. Because when you're the quarterback for that team is destined to be average at best because you don't lead. It's the one position on a football field that literally requires you to be a leader of men. Tell me one great team with a great quarterback where the players don't sit there and talk about that man right there. It's Cam this year. It's always been Peyton. It's always been Brady. It's always been Drew Brees. But every single time we've had questions about a team, it's usually questions about their quarterback.
Yep.
And that is inescapable. And that is the problem that we have with Colin Kaepernick right now. We don't know what we're getting with the personality that is Colin Kaepernick more so than his skills.
All right. So it's interesting. You brought up Cam. You and I both had issues with him in the past when they were losing, and he seemed to separate himself from the losing, sit on the end of the bench, put the towel over his head, and act like I don't want to associate with that mess over there. Once they turned the corner and broke through, there's not a better leader in the National Football League than Cam Newton has turned into. He plays with such authentic, believable joy. Everything. He celebrates with pure, authentic joy. Everything. His teammate, they feed off his joy for playing. When Kaepernick was winning under Harbaugh, he seemed so unhappy with winning. He seemed to have a chip on his shoulder. He seemed sour and dour when he was winning, where he wasn't comfortable with his situation. And I was told that incident he had with a teammate 2 years ago, some was written about it, but it led to the beginning of the end of him losing this football team. I believe in the end he lost this whole locker room. So he needs to start over. I'm not saying he couldn't start fresh. Now, is New York, that's probably his preferred destination. I'm a big Bryce Petty fan. I told you that.
So I like Bryce Petty.
And we have no idea what he can do in pro football because he hasn't gotten any chance yet. But I know they are developing him, and they do like him for the long term. I don't know if have you given up on Geno yet? I wasn't the biggest fan going into his draft.
I'm Ryan Fitzpatrick to Bryce Petty. To me, Geno, look, man, you're the quarterback, and you find yourself in the face of a 250-pound linebacker that you owe money to, you a new fool.
Yep.
I can't trust you.
I hear you.
I can't trust you. I just can't trust you.
I agree. So, in the end, I'm not sure this is the best destination for him, but I do want to see Colin get a second shot in this league at a place where he can prove that he can win a locker room and lead a football team.
That's absolutely correct. And the last part is this. In the end, before the injuries and all of this other stuff, here's what it comes down to in the eyes of the viewing public, meaning other NFL teams. You lost your job to Blaine Gabbert. Really? I mean, and look, man, look. You ain't lose your job. You ain't lose your job. So you lost it to Blaine Gabbert. Now, I don't know. I'm not the aficionado that our very own Chris Carter is. Yep. All right, but Chris Carter religiously could not stop saying every day. You could give that. Keyshawn gave analysis. Tom Jackson gave analysis. Mark Schlereth and Trent Dilfer and everybody, and then Chris Carter would come in at the end and say, Blaine Gabbert stinks. That's all he would say. And that's who Colin Kaepernick lost his job to.
I'm not giving him a pass for this. I think he lost his team, not his job. He didn't get beaten out. He lost his locker room. And after a while, you just have to go.
And I'm responding to you by saying, you tell me one quarterback in history who lost a locker room and recovered from that.
Yeah,
I don't know of any. You don't lose. It's one thing to lose your locker room because they look at you and they say, damn, you just can't play. We love you, but you just can't play. No, he lost his locker room because of attitude. Unless he goes to some shrink and gets that addressed, whatever personality disorder he might have, and I'm not saying he does, but I'm just speaking facetiously. But whatever it is, unless he gets that addressed, I don't know how you can overcome losing a locker room due to your attitude. Because if Blaine Gabbert stinks, that means your attitude was even worse.
Agreed.
Regardless of that, we hope to see the 2014 Colin Kaepernick again, who set career highs in passing, rushing,
that depends
just
on his
about
attitude.
everything. It does.
Got a bad attitude, we don't hope to see him again.
Scott Burnside, ESPN.com here on the latest edition of Hockey Today, the podcast. We chat with Leo Komarov, All-Star and Toronto Maple Leaf, and all things post-All-Star break. You can find it at the new ESPN app under the Listen tab.
And today we have an exceptional crowd as always. Thank you guys so much for being here. We so appreciate you. And this is my favorite part of the show because I get to be in the trenches with our First Take family, our loyal viewers. And we have a special guest right now. You might have Xavier here, Lopez from San Jose. Obviously a big Cowboys fan. You have the coolest dad ever. He lets you skip school, I hear.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So Skip's going to love this. What's your question for him?
What are the chances the Cowboys win the Super Bowl next season?
Woo, what a question!
See how happy you made him?
Would you haters keep it down? That, Molly, that is the single greatest question ever asked in the history of Mollywood.
We love Xavier.
It will always be the greatest question. So here's my answer. If you could guarantee me that Tony Romo will stay healthy all the way through next year, and that Dez Bryant will bounce back 100%, and that Jerry Jones will draft a pass rusher who will immediately contribute next year, and that Orlando Scandrick will come back 100% healthy, and Sean Lee will stay healthy next year, I'm picking my Dallas Cowboys to win the Super Bowl next year.
Wow.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yeah. You know I'm right. Stephen A. Smith is scared to death that I'm right about this.
So in other words, if Tony Romo's healthy, if Dez Bryant's healthy, if Sean Lee's healthy, if Scandrick comes back, if Jerry Jones, I mean, my goodness, if there's more ifs than a little bit up in there, I think the only thing that disgusts me more than that is the fact that I see an individual who's unquestionably probably a great dad contaminating his son with those outfits. I mean, to put your son in a Cowboy jersey, you're ruining the kids before anything's happened. Here's the bottom line. Yeah. The Dallas Cowboys will probably make the playoffs. There is no way in hell that the Dallas Cowboys are winning a Super Bowl because they, say it with me, an accident waiting to happen.
Nope.
Find bucket. Somehow, some way, they will get in their own way and they will do something to mess it all up. Whether somebody get injured, finding out somebody can't stay off the weed, or something. I don't know what it is, but it will happen. The Dallas Cowboys will not be in the Super Bowl. I can promise you that.
Yeah, and this is, stop it. All of you, stop it.
Right.
This is the same man who agreed with me that my Cowboys would have run away with this year's NFC East if they'd stayed healthy.
NFC East, they still wouldn't be here today playing in the Super Bowl.
Yes, they would.
No, they wouldn't have.
Yes,
they would have lost. I promise you that. Arizona or Carolina would have beat them. Or Seattle.
America's team traveling well. Xavier and Ray, good reason to play hooky. We appreciate you guys. And with us now, Demir Hamilton from San Francisco, big Lakers, Giants fan. Thanks so much for being here. What do you want to ask the guys?
Who would you rather have in their prime, Kobe or Steph Curry?
Ooh.
Good question.
You can go.
I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I got to roll with the Black Mamba. Let me say this. Steph Curry's a bad boy. He's the greatest shooter I have ever seen. And he is a superstar that is flourishing before our very eyes. Those first 3 games in the finals, however, he didn't look that way last year. Got that first one under his belt. But there is something about Kobe that's MJ-like. And there has been nobody that we have been able to say that about but him. This is Kobe, a 5-time NBA champion that we are talking about here. Maybe you can ask me to revisit this conversation in 4 to 5 years, but right now, there is no way, as great as I think Steph Curry is, there is no way that I'm picking him over the Black Mamba in his prime. I'm not going that far.
The problem is Steph hasn't even approached his prime to me. And look, Kobe Bryant is the closest thing to Michael Jordan that we've seen since Michael Jordan. This is a bad man, Kobe Bryant, in his prime. But I reserve the right to change because I'm starting to wonder if anybody can even win a single playoff game against this Golden State team. Is it possible they're going to sweep the playoffs and sweep LeBron and company?
Yeah, but that team, the team is different than the individual. The individual is the question. Yeah.
I know, it is, but he is clearly the leader and the driving force of this
question.
team. If they do sweep the playoffs, depending on his performance against LeBron, I assume, in the finals, if he lights it up the way he's been lighting it up, because talk about chip on the shoulder, they've got a big one. They want to show us that we underrated them even after they won the finals last year. If they do that this year, I'm going to revisit this question.
Well, you can revisit it all you want. I will tell you this. Steph Curry, some nights he gets quiet, and we hear about this dude, Klay Thompson, that's the second best shooter in basketball. I'm saying Kobe ain't never had that. Now, he's had the Diesel.
He did.
No question, the most dominant force of the modern-day era, who couldn't hit free throws, by the way. Or Shaq will tell you he hit them when it counts, and so be it. All I'm saying is, you look at Kobe and the load that he had to carry and the different positions that he had to play. Kobe played point guard when necessary. Kobe played shooting guard. Kobe carried a team on his back. Steph Curry can do all of those things. But because he's a great shooter, Kobe could beat you in a myriad of ways.
I'm with you. But is it fair to say this question used to be laughable and it's no longer laughable?
Well, we didn't even consider Steph Curry until he won the chip. So
Sure.
and that was rightfully so.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that it was laughable. You can't win a chip. Why are we talking about you? He's won the chip. So we understand that. And now he's playing in the MVP because he's clearly the MVP of the league right now thus far. But I'm just looking at it from the perspective that now that all guns are blazing in your direction, this is the regular season. The playoffs have not arrived. And now, even if you win this year, let's see when people have time to adjust to what we're seeing, how they'll be able to do so. Kobe transcends errors.
I agree.
We're waiting to see if Steph Curry does that.
Yep.
All right, gentlemen, I need you to pay attention here. Look who came correct. Justin Melander. Are you seeing the suit? You guys might need to take note. He got dressed up.
Looks like
for
Danny
Mollywood.
Terrio.
This is how I expect you to come when you take a trip to Mollywood, Justin. I appreciate you. All right, what do you want to ask the guys?
Do you guys think Dwight Howard is being ref fairly?
I think he is. I think there are times when bogus calls are placed against him, but that happens to a lot of guys. The difference is that, you know, Dwight Howard is not a happy camper right now. He's been playing well, but the team doesn't look as good. Since he's transitioned from Orlando to L.A. to Houston, it hasn't been a good environment for him. His brand has dissipated before our very eyes. I think there's a lot of frustrations outside of basketball that it has influenced Dwight Howard's mood on the basketball court, and I think that has something to do with it.
You know, once upon a time, I considered Dwight Howard a star who could dominate like a superstar on given nights. Now, I think I and also the referees view him as just another pretty good player.
Yeah.
And I think they've lost respect for him because he doesn't always play as hard as he should on either end of the floor. So when you don't command the ref's respect, you don't get it. And I think other teams have figured out you can beat on Dwight Howard and get away with it. And it's, I'm going to say it's unfair because he gets pounded on it.
Well, I'm not going to question his effort because sometimes he's played through injuries and he doesn't get enough credit for that. And Dwight Howard is a really good guy. I think the problem is that because he's such a good guy, he spent so many years tolerating so much that now players aren't scared to go at him, number one, because he's not going to get back at them, and number two, they'll probably get away with it because the refs knows he's not going to get back at them. So his nice personality has actually hurt him. Plus, he seemed to have priorities other than basketball, and that has diminished his brand as well.
Skip, Stephen A., fair to say that our First Take faithful brought it with these questions.
Yes.
I think I need to step my game up. I appreciate everybody getting involved. This is very important to us. We want to take a moment to thank those behind the scenes who make these road shows possible. So much goes into the preparation of the show, and we have a great crew to help put it all together. We so appreciate you. Thank you, all of you. And we have a great crowd as well. First Take at Super Bowl 50 in the Bay at Fort Mason Center. And we're really feeling the love today. We so appreciate everyone being here with us. All right, another Johnny story, unfortunately, to get into. Less than a week after his latest off-the-field incident, a leaked source tells our Pat McManaman that the Browns plan to move on from Johnny Manziel. The first day he could be released is Monday, but the Browns won't do that because of salary cap issues. Skip, what do you want to see happen next year?
Look, I want to be clear about this. I remain a fan of the kid and his ability to play quarterback in the National Football League, and I still believe he's capable of one day becoming a star in the NFL. I'm hoping that the entire league just says no to Johnny Manziel. I'm going to repeat what I said on Monday to you, which is that I know a couple of people who used to know Johnny very well who say they don't know him anymore because he no longer knows who he is. He's got problems, deep, dark problems that he has not addressed. He tried to address them last offseason in a rehab stint that clearly did not work. So I'm hoping, out of tough love, that the league says no to Johnny, so he is forced to look in the mirror and get himself right once and for all, because until he does, he's got no shot in this league, if he has any shot left at all. Are some teams going to be intrigued by his ability and capability? Sure they will be. But I'm pretty sure we're real close to the whole league saying no more Johnny until Johnny can demonstrate that he's in control of Johnny off the field.
I literally have absolutely nothing to add. I could not agree with you more. Every single syllable you uttered, because it's a problem, and I know him. I've spoken to him on many occasions. It's an issue, and I think what people need to be to put into perspective for those out there that may think that folks are being too hard on him. Let's pump the brakes and think about something here. First of all, you want him to get help. All right? It's not like you're saying get rid of him. We don't want to ever see you again. You want him to get the help that he needs. He went into a rehab clinic, purportedly for alcohol. We don't know if it was limited. We don't know if this is not a laughing matter. We don't know if it was limited to that. And then keep in mind, when he was on that side road with the cops, according to the police report, domestic violence was involved, because the girlfriend said he had hit her, he had struck her, and it was at that time that he admitted that he had been drinking when he wasn't supposed to be drinking. And then just the other day, supposedly there was another incident involving him where the girl called the cops, and she said she wasn't just worried about herself, she was worried about him. So they literally sent helicopters hovering around the city to find this guy, to make sure that he was okay. This is the quarterback position that we had. This dude makes Colin Kaepernick look like Joe Montana in terms of his personality. We just finished talking about Colin Kaepernick and how the attitude's got to be right. You can't alienate the locker room. He doesn't. I mean, come on now. That's nothing compared to what Johnny Manziel is going through. He's got a big-time problem, and it has to be dealt with, and there's no incentive for him to deal with it coming from oil money and affluence. He doesn't have that to worry about, okay? So the only thing he has to worry about is not being allowed to play the game that he loves. And I think some tough love is required here, where I would approve of collusion on the part of NFL owners in this particular instance, where they band together and say, you are somebody we are not going to touch at all for this year until you get yourself the help that you need.
Yep. And the saddest irony of all to me about this is Johnny's teammates at A&M and in Cleveland generally really like the guy.
They really do.
They do.
That is true.
And after a while, they get sick of having to answer questions about his misbehavior off the field until they finally say, well, we can't trust him anymore.
You're also the Cleveland Browns. You have a superstar talent in Josh Gordon, who clearly had his own issues, and he was suspended for the year. You really don't need them around each other. You know
and they are close.
And they are close.
Yeah.
They are close. And they're both good guys. But you don't need, ladies and gentlemen, my last line. Everybody talk about, resisting temptation. Let me tell y'all the best way to resist temptation. Avoid it.
No question.
Don't have it in front of your face. That way you don't have to resist it, because most times you're not. That's why it's tempting.
Keep yourself out of those situations. That's great advice. As I always say, we all want to see Johnny healthy and playing football. And I'm very excited about this next story. Oh, Skip, feeling the love. Let's get into it.
That's the first love I've gotten all day.
Oh, please. You got a razor.
People love Stephen A, and they love Molly. It's okay.
Oh,
it's okay.
Yeah. We feel sorry for him. He's the victim.
I didn't mean for that to happen.
Yeah.
I did not.
Can we focus focus on Peyton. All right. Lead sources are telling our Adam Schefter that the LA Rams have had internal discussions about bringing Peyton Manning to Los Angeles if he wants to play another season. He's under contract for another year, but most people around the league don't expect him to return to Denver. Now, Skip, you have said repeatedly if he does not win the Super Bowl, you expect Peyton to play, but not in a Denver Broncos uniform. What's your reaction to this with the LA Rams?
Perfect spot. Love this story because I believe Peyton Manning, if he doesn't win the Super Bowl and go out in a blaze of MVP glory, which I find a real long shot at best, I believe he would be extremely intrigued by being the quarterback for the returning Rams to Los Angeles. With Todd Gurley to hand off to and Aaron Donald leading that defense, this team is a contender. I'm not the biggest fan of the head coach, but I think Peyton would know that he could slide right into that quarterback spot because that's all this team, to me, was lacking last year with Nick Foles and before that with Sam Bradford. I believe Peyton wants to play 3 more years. He and Brady think 40 is the new 30, and I think he'll be ready to play another 2 or 3 years.
I think this is it for Peyton Manning. I think his body has taken a physical beating. I think this is the last game we'll see him play. But as it directly relates to your point about him going to Los Angeles to play for the Rams, I have one word that will change your mind on everything you just said with your little soliloquy. Are you ready?
You better be good.
Jeff Fisher.
Well, I said I love the coach.
I mean, listen, and what I'm saying to you is Jeff Fisher, or how about Stan Kroenke? I mean, both of them. I mean, listen, they're good at making money. I mean, Jeff Fisher could give lessons on how to keep your job. 21 years coaching in the NFL, made the playoffs 6 times, missed the playoffs 15 times, still getting contract extensions, making millions of dollars. I mean, Lord have mercy. You want to learn how to be employed in the United States of America, go to Jeff Fisher. He can teach you about something. I'm serious. I mean, so that's the way. I'm not questioning the man's football acumen. I'm not qualified to do that. I'm questioning his results, which are few and far between.
He got to the Super Bowl.
Got to the Super Bowl 1 year and disappeared for about a decade. This is life with Jeff Fisher. So I'm just saying to you, Peyton Manning being in that situation, good luck with that. I don't believe it.
Wouldn't you be intrigued by the talent on both sides of the ball?
I'd be intrigued by the talent on the defensive side of the ball. Gurley's a stud, no doubt about it. You know, Austin is no joke, but overall talent on offense, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
For a team to be successful in LA, right?
And you got to have
sell tickets.
What a great stage to be for
Peyton's here right now.
Story.
Peyton's here right now in this Super Bowl because of John Elway and the team he put around him. You got faith that the St. Louis Rams can do that?
Maybe Elway is here because of Peyton Manning.
No.
Oh.
Peyton Manning's here because of Elway.
Thank you guys so much for being here with us.
Here because of
Thank you. We so appreciate you. We're back tomorrow. Antonio Brown, Vince Vaughn will be here. Have a great day.
The NBA on ESPN Radio. Chris Paul and the Clippers head to Miami to face Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, and the Heat. Coverage begins Sunday at 1 Eastern on ABC and on ESPN Radio.